From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Climate change is a threat to the state's ski industry. Warmer winters mean shorter seasons and less snow at resorts around Colorado, and presumably less revenue for the companies that run those resorts. But those companies take different approaches to advocating for measures that would slow climate change or offset it. As Colorado's ski industry limps through one of the driest winters in decades, my guest today recently reported on the different stances these companies have taken. Elise Schmelzer of the Denver Post reported on businesses like Aspen Skiing Company that openly lobby for climate change legislation, and several ski companies that simply wouldn't talk about climate change on the record. Elise talked with me about how the industry is responding, or not responding, as ski seasons in Colorado grow shorter.
It's always tricky to tie one season's weather to climate change.
Sure.
The scientists I spoke to say that to specifically say that this winter is impacted by climate change, that takes years of study,
right,
and lots of data. However, what we do know is warmer temperatures will melt that snow faster in the spring. It will mean what would have been snow earlier in the fall will now fall as rain, and will just generally shorten our winters.
Well, Elise, I know you spent months reporting this series. Why do you think it matters if ski companies play an active role in advocacy around climate change, considering so many nonprofits do similar work?
I think skiing is something that a lot of Coloradans care about. And so I wanted to write about climate change through the lens of skiing as a way to get people to tune in to this discussion around climate change. And while nonprofits do a lot of work, I think it's a fair question to ask, what is the business community doing about this as well? These are billion-dollar companies. They make large profits. They have brand recognition that can motivate people to do whatever they think is right to do. And they have revenue to use.
Elise, you reached out to leaders at several Colorado ski companies. What different kinds of responses did you get as you worked on your story?
Yeah, I reached out to the major ski companies here in Colorado, asking them questions on three fronts. What do they know about what winters will look like for them as climate change progresses? How are they adapting their business model to that? Mm-hmm. And what do they see as their role in advocating for policy that will slow climate change or halt it? I received very different answers from different companies. The two big ones are Alterra and Vail. Alterra operates the Icon Pass. So they operate mountains like Steamboat and Winter Park. Alterra didn't answer any of my questions on any of those topics, ignored my emails after a brief response. Vail was willing to talk about how they're adjusting the operations to weather variability, but did not provide someone for an interview about advocacy and climate advocacy. Other resorts like Aspen and Arapahoe Basin were happy to talk about these things. They could give me concrete examples of advocacy that they've completed and spoke pretty bluntly about what they see as their important role in the advocacy realm.
What does it look like when a company takes a pretty open stance on its climate advocacy? What do you see them do?
It seems like to me, Aspen Ski Co. has kind of taken the lead on this in Colorado. If you go on their website, they have a whole page dedicated to climate change, and it talks about greenhouse gas emissions and that those are primarily from fossil fuels. It talks about their sustainability efforts on the mountain, and also here's all the lobbying we've done over the years, both federally and at the state level, to encourage more policies.
Now, you actually attended a rally where a sustainability manager for Aspen Ski Company spoke alongside some environmental activists and lobbied for measures designed to help slow climate change. What did she say about why her company wants to be open about its advocacy?
She said that it's important for Aspen Ski Co. on multiple fronts, both first for their business. They rely on snow. They need snow for skiers to come and spend their money at their resorts. Second, for the way of life in Aspen and other mountain towns. She said that this way of life that relies on mountains and relies on seasons is really important to the people who live there and provides jobs for the folks who live in those mountain towns.
I'm curious if you get a sense of why representatives from Alterra, for example, just were so reluctant to talk about this.
I don't want to speculate on why they wouldn't talk. However, when I spoke to other people who do work in climate advocacy, like the folks from Protect Our Winters, they noted that climate change can be seen as a political issue or has been framed as a political issue for years, and that some corporate leadership are hesitant to speak openly about that. They worry about impacts to their revenue, about what investors will think of it. Again, I don't want to speculate about why Vail or Alterra didn't want to speak on this, but that's what Protect Our Winters said.
Well, there's speaking and then there's taking action through lobbying or working with climate groups. What kinds of measures did the ski companies tend to push for as a measure to limit or reverse climate change?
Pretty much every ski company, at least large ski company, employs a sustainability manager these days.
Hmm.
A lot of these ski resorts are doing important work on their own recycling, on their own energy sources. But when we talk about the lobbying efforts, things get a little more difficult to track down. A lot of the lobbying in Colorado is done through the state organization, the Colorado Ski Country USA. They have in the past lobbied on behalf of policies that would curb greenhouse gas emissions or incentivize other modes of transportation.
Mm.
So there is a lobbying record on that. It's yet to be seen what kind of bills we'll get this year in this session, but it is something I'm paying attention to see if any of these ski companies pipe up.
Well, many resorts are able to make up for some of the reduced snowfall that they've been seeing by using snowmaking machinery on their ski runs. How optimistic were your sources that a solution like machine-made snow will keep them viable in the decades ahead?
It's kind of a mixed bag. It depends where you are. When I was talking to academics about this, they noted that in general, Colorado will fare better than a lot of the other states across the country where skiing happens because our mountains are so high up. We will have colder temperatures for longer. However, the folks at Aspen made the point that at some point, you do need low enough temperatures to make snow. Without those temperatures, you can't make snow. Snowmaking won't solve everything for forever.
That's Elise Schmelzer of the Denver Post. She reported on how different ski companies approach advocacy for measures that could curb climate change. And her story has a pretty striking chart of how warmer winters are projected to shorten ski seasons by weeks at different resorts around the state. That graphic alone is worth checking out, as is her story. You'll find a link in our show notes and at KUNC.org. So, who should we interview next? We always like hearing suggestions and news tips from our listeners. If you have an idea for us, let us know. Email noco@kunc.org. That's NOCO@kunc.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening.